Welcome to part three, really, of my journey as an anime fan. And we're in 1994 now. When I left off, I was talking about, of course, a magazine called Protoculture Addict. I was hoping to actually have a copy, and I'm sure I did own a copy at one stage, but unfortunately I didn't. So this is another one. This was called Manga News Watch. It's along the same vein. It was, a publication that was sold through comic book stores that covered up and coming anime and manga releases, both in America as well as in Japan. And this was the way we digested. This is our Google, if you will, back in the early 90s. There was Anime UK, there was obviously Protoculture Addicts, there was Animerica. They were sort of your big ones that most people sort of bought and digested through their local comic book stores. I can put that over there. And then, of course, obviously there was if you could find the right location. So again, being that I was in Western Australia, might be different other geographical locations. Certainly, New Type magazine and B Club were available if you knew where to find them, which in my case was a Chinese news agency in Northbridge. And this is how we got our information. Now, the other way we got was obviously certain comic book stores like the regular I used to go to, they would put the previews catalogue out on the front counter so you could actually flick through it. Previews catalogue, for those who aren't familiar with it, was an ordering catalogue for comic book shops. So it was about the thickness of a phone book, and you could flick through. It had all your DC, your Marvel, your Dark Horse, Image, Kitchen Sink Press, and then it had like all your videos, both anime as well as just normal pop culture, t-shirts, apparel, wall scrolls, posters, figures, pretty much anything that was sort of comic book, pop culture related would be in there. And it was a 3 month in advance order. So, like at the time of shooting this video, we're in May, so you would actually be ordering for August. So, obviously, you'd have to put down a deposit with the shop that you were at. They'd generally write out some sort of slip, and then 3 months down the track, you would get a phone call to say that your order was in. Hopefully, because not everything arrived. Obviously, some things were geographically locked, so some items you might have thought you'd ordered it. Unfortunately, it was only available for sale in America, United States or continental America, so United States and Canada. It is what it is, or what it was. It was a very different time. And this is sort of part of what this video series is all about, is because how different was it compared to today? Well, that was it. Your knowledge base for what was coming out were these. There was limited online availability of information. We'll talk about that shortly. Um, it was the magazines, it was the books, it was the publications, and they were good publications. They had generally, again, they were more obviously geographically centric. So something like that one there, or an America. They're American centric, so they were going to obviously have advertising for American businesses. They're going to be promoting American video releases. Then obviously Anime UK, much the same. They were primarily pushing Kaseki and US Manga Video UK, and obviously again British bookstores, comic book stores, merchandising stores. So it meant, particularly being in Australia, we didn't have a very well established way of getting stuff in from, say, Japan, for as far as feeding that anime addiction. And it was sort of very hodgepodge. You had sort of, I know certainly around this time I was frequenting about 5 or 6 different shops throughout the metropolitan area to sort of get bits from here, bits from there, bits from everywhere, because there was no one-stop shop. There was no anime stores like there are today. There was no online availability. That's not to say you couldn't order from America. I mean, obviously, I do know of people back in the early 90s who would actually stay up till the wee hours of the night, and they would ring, a shop out of one of these magazines, and they would negotiate a way of making payment, whether that was through using a Maestro credit card or bank card, or sending some sort of international money order or check to pay for an item that they wanted. Certainly, from Japan, what we generally did was, I was a member of JAFA, which is the Japanese Animation Fan Club of Western Australia. Um, generally, if someone was going over to Japan to visit or to, do an exchange, whatever, they would accept wish lists, and you would write out what you would like them to hopefully find, and you would give them money. And then if they found it, they would either send it back to you via the post, or they would keep it on their possession until such time as they return to Australia, and then they would see you at the next meeting thereafter. And there'd be often people hoarding a table where someone had just come back from Japan and they had stuff that they'd paid for. The other things that a lot of these people would do, particularly with these clubs, is that if someone was going over, they might just blindly purchase various items that they knew that people would buy, and then they sell them when they would come back via the club. Now that sort of parlays into the internet side. So obviously, 1994, the internet did exist. It just wasn't what we experience today. Certainly, 1994, we would not be doing this video because there was no platform for it. The internet was very much text based, and there was no real search engine. You had to sort of know where you wanted to go. And a lot of that information came from what's called BBSs, which was bulletin board systems, which was a peer-to-peer computer setup where someone who obviously was a little bit more savvier than yourself would have a computer that was dedicated to receive as a server, and they would have a site set up per se. Again, text-based, no images. You would dial into it. You'd have a particular period of time you could be on there before you'd be booted off to make sure that other people could get on. And there would be various things. So, like in the case of Jarfire back in the day, certainly there was like the screening schedules for the upcoming quarter. There might be some scanned images from shows they're going to be showing. There might have been some actual synopsises for some stuff that was raw. I remember certainly seeing Sailor Moon as raw. We didn't have subversions at the time, so we just had the synopsis in front of us that we would read through. Someone had done a rough translation of what we were seeing on the screen. Um, and then obviously there would be things like, like a sell buy sell pay part where there'd be a text file with items someone might be trying to sell, or a text file with items that someone in might be in Japan at the moment. They've seen stuff and they've worked out some rough pricing in that so that people could actually order, sort of establish an ordering system for it. Even comic book stores did it around that time. There was a couple of comic book stores that had BBSs where they would basically work as a second-hand dealer. So people that wanted to sell off some of their old comic books, they could put in a text list, and they would often print it out and put up on the wall in the comic book shop too. And so you could sort of buy, sell, trade without actually doing it over the counter through the comic book shop itself. So that's sort of the start of '94. Now, obviously, that's just talking about this side of it all. Obviously, we've now got Manga UK coming out with Western or PAL videos, and or Kaseki doing PAL videos, and a lot more comic book shops are starting to pick up NTSC tapes from America. So anime visually in these shops are starting to get a lot more presence. You're starting to see more and more of the we would call them comics, comics from Viz Media, comics starting to roll through from Dark Horse Comics. They're starting to get a bit more prominence in the shelves at the comic book shop. But we're not there yet. There's still a long way to go in 1994 as far as where we're going to end up with once we get to 1995, because 1995 is a huge change. And, obviously 95 we will do in the next video, because we're going to do it year by year for a little bit because things do change quite rapidly. But certainly 94 is still that sort of, you had to buy the information essentially to find out what you wanted to know. You couldn't just look it up. That format didn't exist. So join us in the next video. I think we'll just go straight to 1995. Thank you very much for watching. Remember to like and subscribe, leave comments and questions, and we'll see you in the next video.